This here is the hardest map in the entire game. This video is about my journey, about how I went from never playing the game before to managing to complete the hardest map in just 16 hours, which is a lot, but is pretty impressive. So, enjoy. This is where my journey begins, down at the foot of the mountain, or as most people call it, Sector 1. This, being the beginning, is the easiest sector, but don't be fooled, because if you've just unlocked this area, then it can still trip you up quite a bit. But, being the simplest, I got through this in very quick time. Which annoyingly gives me very little time to talk about it, but it makes a lot of sense. Just know that this one you can manage very quickly. Welcome to Sector 2, a big step up from Sector 1, containing a lot harder jumps and being a lot longer than Sector 1. Here's an example of a harder jump onto a slippery surface and then jumping down onto a grip. Grips, in my opinion, are the hardest ones because you have to tap the spacebar or whatever the jump button is with whatever you're playing on when the grip is in the red box, which can be quite hard to time, especially in the later areas where your hands are shaking because of the nerves, which, you never know, might have made me slip up at one point. But here, we are about to enter the most stressful part of Sector 2, and the part where most beginners get stuck on, post-nail, which is just what me and my friends say, and basically just means the area past the nail where it's not netted. So if you fall, you're done. By the way, to be able to net each sector, you have to reach the next sector, and you'll find a green button that you press. As you just saw, there's a lot of hard jumps in post-nail ready to test you. But despite that, I make it through pretty easily, and on to Sector 3. Sector 3, despite being hard, is quite easy if you have the nets. Now luckily, I have the nets, so I managed to get through this very quickly. As you can see, I'm just going through, going really fast, and then already I get to the nail of Sector 3, which for most sectors is the halfway point basically, and up I go. But the problem, just like with Sector 2, comes when there's no net, and for Sector 3's case, this is where I had failed the most out of the entire time I played. So let's begin. The start of Sector 3 Part 2, or whatever you want to call it, isn't the worst. It has some hard jumps that test how quickly you can move, but aside from that, it's pretty easy. It's when you get to here and beyond where you've got to lock in, because there's just long jump after long jump, just repeating. Here is where you lose stamina quick, so you have to go fast and make a tricky jump. And here is the hardest part, or at least in my opinion, the grip wraparound. But luckily, I managed to get it. So here is basically free, you've just got to do a couple long jumps, and then you make it to Sector 4. Now this sector is interesting compared to the others, being, in my opinion, the hardest sector due to its length and overall difficulty. But still, I managed to pull off some insane stunts. I do use a couple nails here just for safety, because, well, you know, it's really hard. But you can get nails back if you time it right. I don't actually remember if I managed to get the nail back here. Sadly, I don't think I do, but a lot of the time that will work for you. Now, Sector 4 is also interesting because it, at the time, it was my personal best sector, which meant that it was the one sector where I did not have a net. You can see at the bottom, the water isn't flowing like it was for the other sectors, which means that in my personal opinion, the hardest sector, I didn't have a net to do this, which meant that in my opinion, the hardest sector in the entire obby, it meant that if I fell even once, then I would die, which would send me to the very back of the whole lobby, back to the foot, and would mean I would have to go through all of this for yet another run. Here we are already extremely close to my PB, and we're also pretty much halfway. The nail does happen in this sector, but not until a little later on, so I wouldn't really call it halfway. Here is where some scary jumps happen, like this grip jump. The reason I edited this part out is because I spent about 5 minutes trying to get the nail back, but I never did. So, I don't want you all to watch that. But anyway, we are just zooming and coming up to my PB very shortly. And my PB, I managed to make one of the hardest jumps in the whole sector, which, amazing work. And then I failed the next jump, being a really easy jump. So you can see here, I waste a nail, but it makes sense because look at how hard that jump is. But then we've got this jump straight afterwards, yet again onto a grip. But I make it, and now this is officially a new PB for me. So here, I have never seen anything, because I have not watched any tutorials going into this. So I'm just sight reading all of this. My hands are shaking, I'm very confused, I'm probably gonna waste quite a lot of nails. But it won't matter, because, as I said, surely there's no way I beat Sector 5, right? But, onwards we go, and that jump, it looks hard, but it's actually a lot easier than it looks. Which is actually a case with quite a lot of the jumps, but honestly with most of the jumps, they are incredibly hard. I just managed to fluke them. But, as you can see, the nail is quite a lot later on in this sector, but that's mainly just because this sector is insanely long. In fact, this might be halfway, because this sector, it just keeps on going and going, and it makes me run out of things to talk about. But still, onwards I go, and here is the nail. You see that little, nail thing above the grip? That always means that it's a nail jump, and a nail is required. And now at this point, I'm very low on nails here, getting very low. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do? But, land. And what comes with land most of the time? That's right, I just beat Sector 4 for the first time, and there is the button. Now, I was finally at Sector 5, which meant that I'd reached my goal, but obviously, I wasn't gonna just stop and give up here. I was gonna see how far I could really take this. Keep in mind, at this point, I am shaken so bad. I have never come across this sector ever. Never watched any videos, never seen anyone do it, never attempted it, no practice, nothing. This is my first time ever seeing any of these jumps. But yet, despite that, I keep on pushing. I keep on going and going, just looking at the jumps ahead of me and predicting where to go. Sector 5 isn't hard because of the overall skill level of it. Sector 5 is hard because of the nerves and the length of it, because this one is probably the longest sector in the entire mountain, which, you know, makes sense with it being the final sector. But still, eventually at some point, the nerves are gonna get to you, right? Or will they? Will this be the attempt where I manage to beat Sector 5? Everything is flooding through my brain. I can't speak. I'm thinking so fast, and I'm trying to just predict where to go. And jump after jump, I'm just making it. I knew at some point I would have to take a pause, and here is where I just had to take a quick moment to calm myself. Because this is incredible. I have made it so far through Sector 5 on my very first attempt. And I'm starting to look up and see just how close I am to the top. I start thinking, maybe there's a chance, a small slither that I could pull this off, that I could actually somehow beat Sector 5 in one attempt. So I keep going, jump after jump. The jumps are getting harder as I go on, but I am just refusing to fail. I'm just looking around, as you saw just then, just looking around and thinking, okay, how am I gonna do this? Okay, this is how, let me do it. This is an incredibly hard jump, but yet I make it first try. What can stop me at this point? It seems that as far as I go, nothing's gonna stop me. And I am just so close to being able to finish off this obby. I'm so high up, I'm so close. And now here is one of the hardest parts. You have to wrap around and then catch yourself on the ladder. But yet, I do it. Surely nothing can stop me at this point. I am making insane progress, and I'm getting so close to the end. I am getting too close. At this point, it's pretty much guaranteed that I either A, manage to beat the entire obby, or B, fall around this point. Because at this point, I'm so close that if I were to fall, it would literally be either now or never. My brain is going, never. My brain is just thinking, never, never. I am going to beat it now. But yet, sadly, it all comes crumbling down. Luckily, I land back at Sector 4. But at this point, I've been doing this for 16 hours. Even though this one is only 20 minutes. It's late, and is it even worth it to continue? But yet still, I climb all the way back up to Sector 5 and decide to give it one more shot, because I might as well. I mean, I got really far just minutes before. Surely I'll make it that far again, and maybe I'll even make it to the very top. So I keep on climbing and climbing and climbing until eventually let's give this one more try. Here we are, yet again, at the thing that made me fall. But this time, it's different. This was the point where I realised how close I really was. Look at that. Just 10 or maybe even less jumps away from the finish. It seems like after so long, I would finally do it. So with that, how about we just end this already and get that badge?